Brilliance Audio.
Sapphire Spring by C. Travis Rice. Performed by the author and Nazanin Nour. Sapphire Spring is a romance novel that deals explicitly with issues of high school bullying, addiction, and sexual abuse. Naser Kazemi had spent most of his adult life trying to get rich people to rein in their spendthrift ways, and so he'd learned long ago the best strategy for getting an A-type personality to do what you wanted them to do. Never, under any circumstances, tell them what to do. As a CPA, he'd encircled his clients with facts and figures that corralled them onto a better, more prudent path. As the newly hired controller for Sapphire Cove, the person responsible for maintaining the resort's bottom line, his successes had involved alternatives over admonishments. His proudest moment since taking the job 3 months before was the colorful PDF he'd submitted to the hotel's general manager, outlining how the resort could afford better landslide insurance if they reduced the insane amount of money the man was spending on in-room toiletries and the custom-made glass bottles they came in. The presentation had worked its intended effect, even if several of the gruesome landslide photos he'd included had caused his boss to cry out as if he'd been struck. Naser had remained unfazed. Connor Harcourt, Sapphire Cove's general manager, had also been his best friend since their freshman year of college. Naser was no stranger to the expressive flourishes the man made when he didn't get his way. In the end, numbers couldn't be argued with. Arrange them in the right order and they could make a hard truth easier to swallow. But the truth was still there, impervious to bullying, threats, or displays of emotion. That's why they'd always been Naser's first love. But sometimes when it came to men like his best friend, successful, determined, wealthy, and entitled men, only an outright threat would do. And that's why, when he found Connor in a huddle with the hotel's executive chef and pastry chef, 15 minutes after Connor was supposed to have left on his first vacation since taking the reins of the resort, Naser gripped him by one bicep and whispered into his ear, "If you don't leave in the next 30 seconds, I'm going to show everyone who works here the coffee cake footage." Connor's round blue eyes blazed. "You wouldn't dare." Naser would totally dare, and they both knew it. It was perfect blackmail material. That's why it still occupied a special folder on Naser's phone. In it, a pajamas-clad Connor screamed louder than the smoke alarm in the kitchen of their college apartment as he hurled glass after glass of water at their smoke-billowing microwave. Today, Connor Harcourt was a successful former events planner who'd saved his family's resort from ruin the year before. Back then, he'd been a child of such privilege he'd grown up with his own personal chef, which was why, shortly after moving in with Naser, he'd set a coffee cake to reheat for 5 minutes, reducing it to a charred, ember-studded husk and filling their apartment with acrid yellow smoke. In the wake of the incident, and in the interest of keeping their apartment from burning down, he'd insisted on giving Connor several classes in kitchen procedures. Suddenly, the two men had departed the resort's massive kitchen, making a serpentine path through the tide of bleary-eyed guests who were crossing Sapphire Cove's marble-floored lobby in search of the breakfast buffet. As agreed, Jonas Jacobs, the resort's special events director, and Gloria Alvarez, its assistant general manager, fell into step behind them. Jonas wheeled the suitcase Connor had abandoned in his office when he'd showed up earlier that morning after assuring everyone, including his fiancée, he wouldn't make it into work that day. "Don't forget the contractors are coming tomorrow to measure for the new fitness center,"